Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm Harpreet Singh here with the daily analysis from The Hindu from 26 September 2024. Let's start the discussion. The topics that I have taken for today's discussion and analysis are SCO, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, from the editorial China and the Minerals, and again, an editorial on One Nation, One Election. Let's begin with the discussion. Please understand, now there was an article in today's newspaper which says government mulls over sending Jaishankar for SCO meet in Pakistan. Now SCO over here means Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now please understand, because the meeting is going to take place in the month of October. So before that, because what the outcomes would be, we are going to discuss in the month of October when the meeting takes place. But right now, it is important for us to analyze what SCO is. Now, because these meetings, you must understand that whatever the names of these organizations come, they become very important for your preliminary examination as well as your mains examination. So right now, we are just going to discuss about what SCO is, little bit about its evolution and certain aims and objectives. As the meetings comes nearer, we will be having more editorials on these topics, so we will discuss this in detail, right? So Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the context is the heads of the government meeting is taking place on October 15 and 16 in Islamabad, Pakistan. So the problem is that firstly, it is taking place in the country Pakistan, in which firstly, which has been a sponsor of terrorism. That is why we have to mull whether we have to send a representative or not. But because of diplomatic considerations, the Honorable Minister of External Affairs is going to attend the meeting as been stated in the newspaper. Now, going ahead and understanding what SCO basically is, let's see. See, SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, is an intergovernmental political, economic, and security alliance founded in 2001. That means intergovernmental, various governments who are the members and along with the observers and the dialogue partners are basically cooperating on discussion and various dimensions associated with the political, economic, and the security concerns. Now, this was founded in 2001. Now, it is very important here to understand how the evolution took place, because you are very often in your preliminary examinations asked that this particular country is a member or the founding member or not. So that is why please understand. In 1996, that time SCO, the word Shanghai Cooperation Organization word was not there. That time a forum was created which was basically Shanghai 5, right? It was established in 1996 by the founding members, that is Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. But these were the 5 members who formed a forum which was known as Shanghai 5. As we move ahead, in 2001, Uzbekistan joined Shanghai 5, and this body or forum was renamed as Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is why the founding date is 2001, not 1996, because at that time it was not SCO. Clear? In 2015 at ULFA, Russia basically decided and coined that we should have Pakistan and India also are members. At that time, India and Pakistan were the observers at SCO, but they were not members. Over here, Russia added that we should have India and Pakistan as full-fledged members. This was basically told or presented, the idea was presented in front of the other members. Right now, India and Pakistan are not the members. In 2016, India and Pakistan signed a memorandum of obligation. That means what all things are expected of the members when they are members of the SCO. So this was a step towards becoming full members of the SCO. In 2017 at Astana, India and Pakistan became full-fledged members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In 2021, Iran became the full-fledged member of SCO, and in 2024, even Belarus became the member of SCO. So we'll be going to see the members also. So this is basically the evolution. So the latest member is Belarus, who joined SCO as a full-fledged member in 2024. Earlier, it was basically an observer country. Now let's move ahead. Members. Right now, the members are China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Iran, Uzbekistan, and Belarus. Belarus has joined this year itself. This is a new entry that has taken place. Right now, observers, Afghanistan and Mongolia have an observer status. That means they are not full-fledged members. They're just observers who are present there to see what are the proceedings taking place. And whenever required, they can be consulted, but they are not the members, merely the observers. Now, as we move ahead, please understand what are the aims and objectives of SEO. These are something that when you're writing a mains examination, you should be aware of, that you can very well be asked what is the purpose of SEO, what are the aims and objectives. Even in your prelims also, they can ask you. SEO aims to promote cooperation and mutual support in the areas like trade, investment, energy, transportation, and security. It is aiming towards strengthening relationships among the member states, promote cooperation, safeguard regional peace, create a democratic, equitable international political and economic order. So these are those aims and objectives on which the SEO is aiming to work. Clear? So these are some things that you should have a brief idea, which if it's expected of you in your mains examination also to write what SEO, you should have a brief idea about that. As we move ahead, now what is the relevance for India? What is the importance of SEO? Now here comes the important part. Counter-terrorism. Now we all know that SEO has one of the major targets as basically working against the counter-terrorism. So that is important because we know that in the region of the subcontinent, we have a lot of issues related to terrorism. So this is one of the forums where India can basically coin its opinion against the counter-terrorism and what measures can be taken and how we can resolve them. Next is regional stability. Now we very well know that we, we as India, who is a members of the SEO, we are looking for a regional stability of the Central Asian region and beyond. And that goes along with the counterterrorism. So that means how regional stability can be brought about in the Central Asian region and the other parts, even in the Middle East regions where we can voice our opinion or some issues are rising. Let us say, so the major issue is how can the region be peaceful and stable? And that is very, very important. If you want to have a peaceful place, only then you can have good relations with respect to, let us say, trade, economy, and let us say transportation links developing. Otherwise, nothing will work if there is no regional stability. Once we move ahead, then it's connectivity. Now we realize that we are aiming at having good ties with the Central Asian regions also. So that means connectivity needs to be there. So this organization works towards increasing the connectivity, or let us say have the transport links or the arteries in the form of the transport links, so that more exchange of people can take place, right? Next, economic cooperation is very important. Please understand, SEO members together combine form the 40% of the global population, 20% of the global GDP, and 22% of the world's landmass. Now, that itself is a very big aspect which can be used by the countries as a means for mutual benefit and the self-benefit, definitely. Over here, these provides a market for India, which can be used by India also for more of its economic gain. Multilateral diplomacy, it is not a unilateral forum. You can have unilateral exchanges, but we have so many countries, 10 member countries over here, along with the observers and the dialogue partners also, where you can have exchange of views, because this is a very and a critical region which is important for India's economic development as well as regional security. So you can have multilateral discussion where so many partners are continuously together involved in discussing and resolving their issues. Boosting relationship with Central Asia, India has a policy of Connect Central Asian policy. Now, this policy comes as a very big boost because SCO's aim is also as it is has the major Central Asian powers there, and India's aim is also to connect to the Central Asian policy. So this, both the objectives of India and this organization are overlapping. So it is a win-win situation for India when we see its relevance. But it does not mean that having a few relevance does not mean that there are not challenges associated with that. There are major challenges over here. Let us see the challenges also. Challenges for India. India's sovereignty. Please understand, China has a continuous policy of encroaching the land of the neighbors, whether it is landmass or even the sea region. So what happens is that we know that the complete Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. Even the so-called Pak-occupied Kashmir is also an integral part of India. Now, under the Belt and Road Initiative, China has been building connectivity routes that are basically connecting China to Pakistan in the lieu of saying that we are boosting connectivity with the Central Asian region. It is hurting the sovereignty of India. In spite of the fact that India has raised repeated concerns that that is an Indian territory, neither China nor Pakistan are concerned about that. Now, being in a group where you have two of the countries where you have been against them in wars, along with that, doing certain policies which goes against the interest of India and hurting the Indian sovereignty creates a lot of issue. Because when we are in the forum of SCO, we have to discuss that our sovereignty is being hurt. Over there, both say that it is their mutual interest and they are boosting the connectivity. Boosting connectivity cannot come at the cost of our interest, which is the most important for us. That is India's interest. When we move ahead, balancing the ties with the Quad and SCO, we realize that in the Quad, we have members like United States, right? In SCO, you have members like China and Russia. Now, both China, Russia, and United States, you realize that they are like Cold War enemies or enemies in a way. Now, India is member of both groups. So, balancing the ties is very important. Now, you will be realizing, can Quad be used as a measure against China? Yes. Can SCO be used as a measure against the United States in the future if required? Yes. India believes in the policy of strategic autonomy. That means it is not going to have specific relations with one bloc or a country without seeking its interest. No, for India, it is important maintaining the balance. But what happens really is that often when India is a member of SCO, various times United States tends to question, can we have relations further deepen with India when India is already in close relations with China and Russia in the SCO? Similarly, over here, Russia and China also have certain problems where India is in very close ties with United States. So from the India side, it becomes a little difficult to balance the relations, though India is doing well with its policy of strategic autonomy. Regional security. Now, the important thing is that regional security, though being a major aspect through the counterterrorism measures, we still see at the ground level, we are having a lot of issues. Let us say the Afghanistan side, which is though a observer status, still observer member, but it is still an observer member of the SCO in a form of an observer body. We see in Pakistan regional instability being there, in spite of the fact that repeatedly we have seen crises in these regions. These pose a lot of problem for India. Not only the security of those countries, but security of India itself. Now, coming to the Pakistan angle, now Pakistan is a all-weather enemy of India and it is an all-weather friend of China. It is also deepening its relationships with Russia. Now, we all know that every time, whether it is border issue, whether it is security issue, whether it is infiltration of terrorists, it has a policy of state-sponsored terrorism. As very rightly said, it follows a policy of bleeding India through 1,000 wounds. This is what the policy of Pakistan is, because they cannot directly fight India. So they follow a policy of bleeding India through 1,000 wounds. That means attacking small places, infiltrating through terrorists. Now, in spite of the fact this has been repeatedly mentioned that we will not be talking to you unless you resolve the problem of terrorism. But being in this group, they say we are ourselves suffering from terrorism. But that is not an answer because you have a state-sponsored policy of terrorism. How can you expect that being there along with it, you want you to talk through the economic relations? So these create a lot of issue. That is one of the reasons why whether going to Pakistan to ascend for the SCO meeting or not is also a consideration right now. Clear? So Pakistan angle again creates an issue because when the SCO bodies are sitting, Pakistan tends to create a lot of problem in those meetings in order to raise issues against India, though it itself has a lot of problems with India because we very well know that India, in spite of being such a large country, in spite of being being a major populated country or the largest population, it is still rising at a rapid rate. On the other hand, Pakistan, we can see, is going on a downward trajectory. Next is low bilateral trade. Except for China, if you realize, India has a very low trade or connect with respect to the Central Asian regions. So this is again a concern which needs to be resolved. Markets need to be more open and accessible to with the Central Asian policy that we have, so that we can basically have a lot of investments there. Investment can come here. We can see whatever industries can be established there. They have a rich source of various minerals that are present in the Central Asian region, but they are not being exploited. So India has avenues, but provided that those are allowed by the governments of the Central Asian regions. Let's move ahead. Now, please understand what is required for SEO we have done here. As the meetings progresses, as October comes closer, we will be having various editorials. So we will be discussing that in detail too. Next, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, IPF. The context is that India signed the US-led 14-member IPF bloc's agreement on clean and fair economy. Now, what is IPF? That is something that we need to understand. Let's move ahead. See, IPF. IPF was launched in May 2022 in Tokyo, Japan, right? Now, what is the objective? Enhance economic engagement, cooperation among the partner countries to foster growth, economic stability, and regional prosperity. That means these are basically forums through which multilateral discussions take place, through which concerns are raised, issues are resolved. So that these are basically types of confidence building measures. Along with it, we realize that every forum has its own type of agenda through which issues are resolved. And because there are so many various organizations that are there or bodies that are there, it provides a platform for the countries to discuss and resolve their conflicts also. Similarly, this ITF is also there. This becomes very important again for your prelims examination and mains examination. So let's move ahead. Having got a brief idea of this, member countries, there are 14 member countries: Australia, Brunei, Fiji, India, Indonesia, Japan, Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, USA, and Vietnam. Now, all these countries, if you realize, form the 40% of the global GDP and 28% of the global goods and service trade. So that means a very important aspect with respect to the economy. Now, as we move ahead, please understand what are the IPF pillars or what are the focus areas of IPF. Please understand. First, Pillar 1 is fair and resilient trade. What does it mean? Aims for regional growth, peace, and prosperity, focused on the transparent trade partners. That means whatever trade takes place, it should be transparent so that the corruption aspect or the misuse of the trade policy should not be there. Next is Pillar 2, supply chain resilience. That means it aims to make the supply chain resilient, robust, and well integrated, logistic improvement, and skilling and reskilling the workers. Pillar 3 is clean economy, aims to promote renewable energy and climate-friendly technologies. Pillar 4, fair economy, that means implement anti-corruption and tax policies. Now, these are the 4 pillars. Now, what important thing you need to realize this is a very basic. I think it will not require a lot of rocket science because these are simple words. What is important for here us to understand is what is the India status with respect to each pillar. Please remember, with respect to fair and resilient trade, India is merely an observer. It is not an active participant. That means India is ready to work on these things as participant, but not on this pillar. Make sure that you understand that. In the examination, it can be asked under the IPF, India is a part of pillar 1, 2, 3, 4. You will be imagining what those pillars are. But you must understand that India is merely an active participant for these 3, not this. So it is merely an observer. It is not going to participate in this pillar or works associated with this pillar. Pillar 2, active participant. Pillar 3, active participant. Pillar 4, active participant. That means it is going to be involved in pillar 2, 3, 4, not in pillar 1 of IPF. Now, please understand why. India's position. India has an observer status with respect to pillar 1 due to the potential discriminatory conditions and particularly areas of digital governance and environmental standards. Sometimes what happens is environmental standard or laws as dictated by IPF would be there, and sometimes you know that we in India have to see what are the economic conditions are, what the socio-political conditions are, so we can simply not be under the burden of assuming what is being said by IPEF. What happens is they tend to favor the Western countries than the developing countries. So what happens, it imposes a lot of obligation in India. So India said that we will not come under this obligation because our economy is growing. There would be certain issues also. If rigorous standards are imposed, there are various unorganized sector market that would be burdened and they will become, let us say, non-competitive in the market because those standards are imposed. So they would become obsolete. So that is why they have said that right now we will not come under this policy that pillar 1 imposes. So they said we can work on other things, that is fine, but we will not come under any obligation, which creates a problem for the people who are the members of the economy in India. Along with it, discriminatory conditions, obviously, it will favor those countries which have free trade, larger capitalist market. So that might go against the interest of India. That is why India has not been an active participant for Pillar 1. This is something that you should know with regards to IPEF. Next comes a editorial. Please understand, this basically warns about certain aspect that it mentions about critical minerals. It also mentions about rare earth metals. Basically says how the minerals that you have in your country can help you gain strategical or political advantage across the world. Over here, we talk about China and how it is using its deposits of the critical minerals and the rare earth metals as a means of geopolitics to show its monopoly or its advantageous position. Now, please understand, in this particular article, we realize there is something that is mentioned as critical minerals. Please remember, critical minerals are those minerals which are very vital for the economy. For example, nickel, magnesium, cobalt, aluminium, these are critical because they're very, very important for any economy, or for that matter, economy of a country. Among the critical minerals, there is one specific branch of critical minerals which are known as rare earth metals or rare earth minerals. These are like neodymium, terbium. Now, these are very, very important with respect to the electronics industry and obviously various other applications that we see. Electrical and electronic devices, it is very, very important. We'll study them also. Please understand again, this article mentions about critical minerals and obviously rare earth. Critical minerals are those which are very important for the economy, like nickel, cobalt, aluminium, which we are talking about. But within the critical minerals, there is one branch of critical minerals which are known as rare earth metals or rare earth minerals, which are very important with respect to the electronics industries and which we'll see right now. Over here, what we are seeing, please understand. Before I go ahead, let us see what rare earth metals or minerals are. See, there are 17 metallic elements. These minerals have unique magnetic. This is the reason why they are very important. Magnetic, luminescent, that means they emit light, electrochemical properties, which makes them very important and critical for modern technologies like consumer electronics, computers, networks, communication, healthcare, defense equipments, clean energy technology. So this is very important with respect to whatever the present and contemporary technologies are. So these minerals are basically used in the components that are manufactured, because those components, or let us say semiconductors, is required in almost every electronic device. It is because it is the basis of an electronic device. So without the rare earth metals, which is one type of one set of critical minerals, you will not be able to have all these things that are visible in front of you. So what is the problem? Firstly, please understand they are called rare earth for the reason because earlier it was very difficult to extract from their oxides. Let us see an example. We have iron oxide, right? Now, iron oxide is an ore that is found. It is refined to from which we get iron. But when the oxides or the rare earth metals are there, it is very difficult or a complex process. Now, obviously, the technologies are there to extract it in a better way. But earlier it was very difficult. That is why it was known as rare earth metals or minerals, and the name still continues. Now, we move ahead. Please understand. Currently, China produces 60% of the world's rare earth metals and origin of 90% of the refined rare earth in the market. Just imagine, China has a monopoly of the rare earth metals. Now, this can be used in order to gain geopolitical advantage. This is what this article basically talks about also. See, in the introduction paragraph, he says that China announced restriction of exporting antimony. Now, antimony is not a rare earth, but yeah, it is a critical mineral. So here he mentions about the critical minerals, and he talks about that China has imposed a restriction on the export of antimony, and antimony is very important with respect to the defense and again electronic equipments. Now, if China is imposing that, what will happen? It will impact all these electronics and the defense sector of the various countries, because they are dependent upon China because they tend to import these minerals from China. Now, what happens is that over here we tell that the writer is mentioning about China and the critical minerals. Now, 60% production of rare earth and 80 to 90%, as we had mentioned, of the refined minerals are basically from China, and that creates a monopoly of China over here. Because world over, the import of the rare earth or the critical minerals basically takes place from China. If China tends to impose certain restriction, it will be a very problematic situation. Restriction and geopolitics. In this particular section, he basically talks about the past events where United States had imposed certain restrictions, where China as a measure imposed certain restrictions with respect to exporting certain minerals or critical minerals to US. So this is used, mineral actually have been used as a geopolitical measure. Earlier, oil was a major important thing. Yes, it is, but now it is the minerals. Why? Because as we are moving towards the green energy, the solar panels, they are all dependent upon these rare earth metals. So what happens? That creates a situation where China is at a very advantageous position. What position that the Middle Eastern nation had or occupied with respect to the geopolitical conditions, now China is going to slowly occupy that particular position because all the major rare earth metals or the production takes place from China, and China is a major exporter of those critical minerals, which obviously includes the rare earth metals. Over here also we realize that the thinker is mentioning how China is basically creating a monopoly with respect to the resources of the critical minerals that it has. Now over here, please remember, he gives the example that US had imposed an oil embargo against Japan in 1940. That means at that time the World War was going on. So the oil import that what Japan was doing, a restriction was imposed on that. So what happened? It created a problematic situation for Japan. Similarly, it is like an example what China is doing now against United States and all the other countries not to create its advantageous position. As we move ahead, we realize that over here it is talking about how China is basically using its tactics. First is strategic dependency. That means it is making the other countries realize that you are dependent on me, and that gives you a geopolitical and a strategical edge. Second, sabotaging mineral supply. Sabotaging, if the mineral supply is stopped, then that will create a situation where the future industries, let us say electronics industry, electric vehicles industry, all the chip semiconductor industries would all come to a halt. So that is why if it changes or halts certain mineral supplies, it can create or destabilize the whole electronic markets. Over here, we realize that India is heavily dependent upon China with respect to nickel, cobalt, and all these imports. A bill of close to 34,000 crores was basically in fiscal year 2023 just for the import of these critical minerals. So India is heavily dependent upon China. That is why the article suggests that we need to find alternative solutions, alternative countries where we can get a supply and possibly explore more where India can also have certain minerals which can be used. So this is what the editorial talked about. Let's move on to the next. Please remember, I am not going to talk about what One Nation, One Election is and what Ramnath Kovind Committee report is, because we have discussed that topic in a lot of detail twice before. We will not be picking up One Nation, One Election again, because unless and until some newer topics come. This is certain dimensions that were mentioned here. I've picked it up. But you all know in the previous lectures, I've discussed One Nation, One Election in detail, its evolution, the recommendation was given, what recommendations are given by Ramnath Kovind Committee, what the Law Commission has stated, what is the National Committee on the Review of the Constitution has stated. So we have done it in detail. What are the advantages? What are the problems? We have discussed everything. We are not discussing that right now. We are just discussing what the editorial states over here. Please understand, over here, One Nation, One Election, that is ONOE. In the introduction, the writer basically says that One Nation, One Election has been in the news for a few years. Now, over here, he says that Ramnath Kovind Committee was basically found in order to study and how this election could be feasible. So this report was submitted in March 2024. Why this report is here? Because the reason behind is the Union Cabinet had approved that One Nation, One Election would be implemented. Now, over here, please understand, he starts to criticize and tell that what are the various problems that are associated. He says that, as we had discussed about Article 172 in a previous lecture, the amendment to the Constitution under Article 172 would take place, which basically deals with the tenure of the state legislatures. Now, he says that this will go against the federal spirit. He repeats this federal spirit concept later on also, but over here, what does he say? Because Article 172 talks about the tenure of the state legislature, under the One Nation, One Election concept, the tenure would not be fixed. So that is why this is going against the federal polity of India. That is what the thinker over here is presenting or telling you. As we move ahead over here, we realize that he talks about there will be a lot of implementation issues with respect to one nation, one election if the government tries to implement. The reason behind it is that it will require a special majority. Now, what is a special majority? Special majority is a majority of the total membership of the house. That means whatever is the total membership, let us say 543. Now you have to have a total majority with respect to the total members of the house. First. Second, majority of not less than two-thirds of the members present and voting. That means, firstly, if 543 members are there, you need to have a majority from this. And out of that, remember, all the people who are present there in when the voting is taking place, not less than two-thirds of the members should vote in favor. So that means it is a very difficult process in order to get a special majority get passed, right? Over here says that presently the opposition is against the concept of one nation, one election. So at the ground reality, it will be very difficult or very difficult for the government also to implement the one nation, one election. So this is what is being basically presented. So you have learned what is the concept of special majority over here. As we move ahead, we realize that we have the writer basically mentions certain other concerns and aspects. He basically counters the Ramnath Committee recommendations also and what are being presented by him. So what he says is that election versus disruption argument is criticized. Please understand, what does it basically mean? He basically says that when we say that election is going on and disruption takes place because of repeated election, he said that that would not be a valid argument because there is no proper research being done on that. Because if one nation, one election takes place, it will itself create or stigmatize development for a very long period because it will be like a whole festive season or election in a country taking place. So it will itself create or stigmatize the development for that period. So you cannot give an argument that repeated election tends to lessen the economic activities or disrupt economy. One more thing is mentioned, the amount allocated to election commission for the election. Now, the Ramnath Kovind committee had said that a lot of money is spent because of repeated election. But if you realize that the one-time amount that would be allocated for one major election and along with if you take the various elections taking place and the total money allocated, there would not be much difference. That means separate elections and one major election along with it, it will almost be equal. Little bit difference might be there, but there will be no major difference. So just saying that because money is being saved and then the concept of one nation, one election is taking place, the writer says that is not a valid argument. As we move ahead, he has again repeated that this concept is against federal structure. He says that Keshav Nanda Bharti case in versus the state of Kerala in 1973 said that federalism is a basic structure of the constitution, and when over here Article 172 is being amended, it is going against the federal spirit of the constitution. Now, this is what the arguments are presented by the writer. We need to realize that when the question comes in the paper, we have done the committees also, which was asked this year's mains examination. We have seen what are the pros and cons also, that also seen. We know certain views that are being presented. These articles are basically that make you think what are the possibilities. This is what is the editorial that it basically talks about. We have already covered this topic in detail in the previous two lectures also, with where we have considered we have done the concept in detail. Along with it, we have basically covered the Ramnath Kovind committee recommendations along with the other committee reports. So this adds to your better understanding of the particular topic of one nation, one election. This was the current affair for today's discussion. You can find the PDF. You can find the PDF on my Telegram account. So coming back to the first page, hope you enjoyed the discussion of the Hindu analysis from 26th of September 2024. We will always welcome constructive criticism as well as your recommendations. We will keep on improving, keeping it more holistic. But remember, we are not here to burden you with information, but what is required for the civil services examination. This is me, Harpreet Singh, signing off from today's daily analysis from 26 September 2024. Take care and Jai Hind.